can click on the link to the PowerPoint. And we got lots to do, so welcome. Thank you for joining us again. Although it has been about 4 months since we last saw all of you, your preschool and some kindergarten SPED teachers and SLPs were trained in Brady and Story Grammar Marker last month. Hopefully the teachers have been introducing Brady and using the Story Grammar Marker tools with their students to help develop their oral language skills. As school level coaches or teacher mentors, we hope that your teachers will be able to come to you for questions that they might have. And we want to support you and your school as much as possible by building each school's capacity. So we're asking that you all complete the end of the session survey so that we can best learn how we can support you and your teachers at your school. So go ahead and sign in and then also download the PowerPoint if you haven't done so. And without further ado, let's welcome back our trainers, Mary Ellen Rooney Morrow, founder and creator of SGM and Brady, and her tag teammates, Linda and Sheila. So,
hello, everyone. Hi. Thank you for joining us. We'll just go quickly through, Mary Ellen, if you want to go to the next slide.
Yep.
Welcome back. We're very glad to see you all. Just wanted to run over a quick our agenda because we are limited, of course, to an hour. And what we're going to do is just a 2-minute review of Brady and the stages of development. And then we're going to catch you up with new content from the teacher sessions that we have been doing, including a little bit more on using the gradual release of responsibility and a little bit on the growth mindset. And then we have created some look-fors for you so that when you're going into teachers and you're doing observations, you can help them to incorporate more of Brady. And also we're going to share that with them as well. That's something that we've just created for you tonight. And then we're going to catch you up with Brady's connections to social emotional learning competency clusters using Knuffle Bunny, which is a book that we used in our training with you before. And then we were going to do a recap of some aha moments, but I took that off. We're going to postpone that until we do some our work with you in February. So we'll continue and I'll hand it over to Mary Ellen and Linda.
So welcome everybody, and I'm in charge of the review tonight. So I'm going to just quickly review the developmental stages and the basic story grammar marker in the Brady form. And when we're using this, we're providing the children with something that's hands-on, it's visible, it's right there, it's multisensory because it moves, and it has the colorful icons that are ultimately internalized by the students. But while you're using it in a developmental stage, you're helping them to organize and think about and express ultimately stories and experiences. So the icons you are all familiar with, but here are all the arrows pointing to them. And icons can be taken off and put on. Everything can be taken off and put back on as you talk about things. So when I mentioned the stages of narrative development, because this is where everything starts and where children's life starts, they're aware of characters and their setting. So that's what happens very early on. The second stage is the action sequence stage, where the character and the setting are still there, but now there are actions that are taking place. At first, children may just have one action, and it may be boy, kick. That's all they say, but they've got a character and an action. So progresses from there to using the INGs, to using EDs at the ends of the verbs to express the tense. And then it's putting things in order gradually. What are the actions that you see that are in the story or in the activity that you're doing, and what's the order of them? Stage 3, you'll see the character the setting and you'll see the action beads, but you see the kickoff. And this stage 3 has been cited as extremely important in the research because there's a cause for something there. The kickoff is a cause. It's something that happens that wasn't really noticed before. And people, children, characters and stories have reactions. So there's a kickoff and a reaction in stage 3. And we talked about those 3 stages as being very important in pre-K. Stage 4 is where the feelings come in formally. Although I like to talk about feelings whenever I get a chance to talk about feelings, because before children can really express them, they do feel them, and we can identify feelings for them. So the abbreviated episode is very important because of the inclusion of feelings and then ultimately thoughts and plans for characters. The complete episode is Brady as it's all set up. And I have mine here tonight all set up with the character and all my parts on it, which the beauty of it is that you can make it as developmentally appropriate as you need to. So that's a little review. And I always ask people to really internalize that developmental sequence because it's so helpful when you're analyzing a book or helping a child expand their utterance. So a little bit of catch up now. We read Rosie's Walk, and you know the story of Rosie the hen and the fox, 2 perspectives. The book is written at an action sequence level. So here's Brady set up with Rosie the hen on Brady's head because that's the character. The setting is the farm, and then the actions are the things that Rosie did. So what we wanted to do is to show you how we would incorporate crowd with these icons specifically. So the first thing is Rosie is a character. Tell me the places that Rosie went. We're recalling a sequence, so that would be the rings or the beads. What's going on in this picture? Show a page from the book focused on the setting and actions.
That would be
Beautiful
the
day,
open-ended.
right? The open-ended, the O in crowd. The W, where did Rosie live? We're using a WH question, where, and it's involving the setting. The D is distancing. Have you ever seen a chicken? How do they act? What do they do? So we're looking at the 5 crowd questions with Rosie as the character. We can also scaffold the episode from the fox's perspective. Now, I mentioned how Rosie's was an action sequence because all she did was walk across the yard, around the pond, over the haystack. Wonderful for prepositions. Those were all her actions. The fox made a plan. He wanted to eat Rosie for supper. And when he saw her come out of her coop, he was very, very excited. And the things that he did was he followed her across the yard, but he got hit in the head with a rake. So now that you're recalling the story, I'd like to use the 5 of the crowd questions with specific parts from the fox's perspective. The fox wanted to what? That's make a plan. He wanted to eat Rosie. So that's the C, the completion. The recall would be, tell me 3 things that went wrong for the fox, recalling a sequence. So what were the 3 things? He got hit in the head with the rake, so he didn't get her when he walked across the yard. Those things. The O, how do you think the fox feels in these pictures, where we're really looking at the pictures themselves and we're looking at the feelings that he is showing on his face and body language. The WH question is where again. Where does a fox live? The setting and its vocabulary about the forest, because vocabulary building, Rosie was a farm animal. However, the fox lived in the forest. And what do we know about the relationship between the two of them? The distancing. Have you ever been somewhere when you didn't get what you wanted? That's the direct consequence. The fox did not get what he wanted. Have you ever been in that situation? So that would spark a lot of conversation. So we wanted to show by these two slides, first of all, that you take the one character's perspective one time and you can take another character's perspective from the same book another time. Or there might be two children and you can ask them both for their perspectives. So these are just, I'm not going to go through them all, but these are all completion questions related to the whole episode. So Rosie lived on a completion. Then this is recall. What was it about Rosie that the fox liked pertaining to character? So you'll see each one of these questions pertains to one of the icons on the story grammar marker. The O focuses on illustrations. Do you think that Rosie knew the fox was following her? Let's look at this illustration. Describe the farm. We have to look at the pictures. W are the WH questions. Who are the characters? Where, what, how, why, where, what. So these are all the WH questions that could be asked pertaining to the episodic structure. And then D is distancing. So each one of the icons has a distance question that's related to the plot of Rosie's walk. So we thought you would like to have those. And that's kind of completing my part of the review. But when you have a chance to look at the questions, I think you'll like them. So this now, I'm turning it over to Linda. Building a growth mindset. That's our
And
next.
Sheila has created a beautiful display here of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And I love the language that inside the two icons here, and how a person with a growth mindset is thinking the terminology that you see in there. I can learn to do anything I want. Challenges help me grow, versus a fixed mindset. Failure is the limit of my abilities. I'm either good at or I'm not. So when the child has a growth mindset, they have that belief that they can grow and become better at something if they work hard at it. Mary Ellen has put together a library of books that you can use to teach growth mindset to children. One of our favorites that we used at the day school was Your Fantastic Elastic Brain, but she has others that are geared for younger children. I can't do that yet. I can do hard things, and thanks for the feedback. And at the bottom is a fabulous quote by Dweck: a growth mindset is when students understand that their abilities can be developed. And we believe really that when you're using Brady, a growth mindset is evident in the children as they progress and learn to be better using this tool.
Great.
The gradual release of responsibility really ties into the growth mindset. In the gradual release of responsibility, we are trying to take the responsibility of teaching by the teacher and transition that into independent learning by the student. So initially, when you're doing a gradual release responsibility, you begin with an I do. We were trying to get this in a visual model for the students at the day school. So we put together these posters that we had posted on the boards that were from Reggie Routman's book, Reading Essentials. And in I do, the teacher is the one that is in the, I'd say, like driving the car right now. She is initiating, she's modeling, she's explaining, she's thinking aloud, she is showing how to do something. And the child at this point when the student is really supposed to be just listening and observing and may participate on a limited basis if they so choose. But at this stage of the game, the learning, the responsibility for teaching is in the teacher's hands. This segues into a we do. And in a we do, the teacher is still demonstrating and leading, suggesting, but the student is doing the task with the teacher together. So it's a team approach to doing it. The teacher explains, still responds. The student is listening, but is now interacting, asking questions, responding, trying to do the task, approximating, participating with the teacher. Once a child becomes very confident with doing a we do with a teacher, then you can segue into a y'all do. And in a y'all do, you notice that the learner behavior now is in the middle column. So the learner is now applying the learning, taking more charge, problem solving, trying to self-correct, and the teacher is more as a support. They're scaffolding. They're teaching as needed based on what the student's doing. They're observing what they're doing. They may clarify. At the day school, when we did a y'all do, I typically did a y'all do with 2 students working together so that they could learn from each other. And one could often sometimes be even more like the teacher in that instance, and one would be a student. But this to me was a very important step when you're working with children who are struggling to learn in school. And then finally, once a child is competent with a y'all do, then you segue to a you do. And this is where the student is really independent and is trying to do all the tasks on their own. They're self-monitoring, they're applying the learning, they're trying to problem solve, they're looking at whether they did it the right way or not. But again, the teacher is there to assist at any time as needed. Now, these pages were great for the students at my school because they were older, but I asked Sheila to make a format that would be more appropriate to younger students. So she made this lovely display here of me with glasses wearing my favorite color turquoise, doing the same thing. So the I do, I am just holding on to the Brady and I am the one modeling how to use it. But then in a we do, you notice that the teacher, as well as the 3 students, everyone is holding on to a Brady and they're participating and they're doing it together. The y'all do is transitioning to 2 students using the manipulative, and then finally a you do where you're doing independently. These can be cut apart, they can be pasted on a center. When you're doing a lesson, a teacher could be having the I do up, and after several I do's, she could do a lesson and be posting a we do poster. A center could have a y'all do posted on it, or a you do, whatever the needs are, whatever the task is. These can be just posted that the students start to learn what's expected. And they don't really have to read, they just can look at the picture there and determine what their job is to do that day. We were trying to think about centers that would be normally found in a preschool or a kindergarten classroom, at the same time thinking about what macro structure elements students need to learn and teachers need to teach. So we believe that the dress-up center is really conducive to doing character. Students are dressing up as different characters. They're trying on the behaviors of different characters. They're trying on the actions of different characters. So the dress-up center is just perfect for teaching that. In addition to having a variety of outfits to wear, depending on the theme of the week or the month, you can also have the Bunch of Brady poster posted in there, which has a gazillion different little Bradys on it, doing a variety of jobs that you'd find out in the community. And I think on the next slide, there's a blow up of it, so you can see it a little bit better. And you can use this also as a, almost like a Find Waldo type task where students are trying to look for particular character in there. And I think you have another part where there's questions on each part, Mary Ellen? Things to look for?
It's not.
Yeah, I don't think that one was there, but so if we go back to the previous slide, there's some questions on the back of this Brady poster, and you can, there's various levels that you can go through and ask students to find different things.
It isn't there. No.
Sorry.
But that's on the mini poster that there are the
Right.
questions.
I think it on the other
Mhm.
presentation, Linda,
Yes.
I did have it on the other slide, but
Slide.
I didn't put it in this one.
Okay.
Mhm.
Furthermore, if you're thinking about teaching character and using that, the dress-up center, when you want to teach character, a really fun way to do it with students is to create what we call a character splash. So a character splash would be a large piece of poster board with a character in the middle. And I think Becky has one there that she's showing.
Yes.
Can
You can see that. She has them.
Hold on, let me see if you can, I can just
That
spotlight.
she
that.
made.
So, I created these anchor charts for all of the teachers, and it's laminated. And then I also put the character song on the top so you could sing it. And it's laminated so you could put, tape on it and then stick it on your Brady doll later on if you want to. But when I go and visit the teachers for their coaching, I've been dropping it off at their to the schools and the classrooms.
That's beautiful.
There they are. It's beautiful. It's right.
So there's a character and also the setting
Super.
Oh, great.
with the
That's
song.
great.
Oh,
For the singers amongst you, which would not be me. But I think that's fabulous. So if to introduce a character splash, you are going to do a gazillion I do's, and you're going to do I do's, I do, I do, I do, I do. So you're going to read a book. You're going to talk about, excuse me, a character in your school, a character from their home, a character anytime you can think of one. And then you're going to post a picture of that character on that splash. That would be the I do. And after you've done many, many I do's, then you're going to transition to a we do. And you're going to maybe read a book, or you might go on an adventure in your school building. They might do something in the classroom with a friend. And then you'll give them a choice of 2 pictures and ask them which one is the character, and then post that character onto the splash. And once you've done many, many we do's, you're going to segue to a y'all do. And you'll pair them up with a partner. And after doing a similar type activity, they will identify what the character is among those images, and that will get posted to the character splash. And then finally, after they've done many, many y'all do's, and you know they're competent in doing that, you'll segue into a you do, where the child independently will choose which one is the character to be placed in the character splash. So if you've done a lesson as an I do and you feel you want to go into a we do the next week, you're going to go back and review an I do before you introduce we do. And the same thing for y'all do. Before you introduce a y'all do that day, you're going to do a we do together with them and then segue into a y'all do. I think we had some notes on the bottom of that, right? Each step of the gradual release should be repeated multiple times to ensure student competence. Always spiral back and repeat the previous step, and add to this splash throughout your school year. An additional activity that can be completed in the in the dress-up center would be, after a child's dressed up, to use this character map that's in the manual, and the student could draw a picture of what they were that day. Just a simple drawing. And if a student is even a little bit more advanced, the following slide shows how a student may want to draw a picture. You notice the character icons in the upper right-hand corner, and then they might potentially want to do some invented spelling like firefighter, hose, and water, or potentially they may want to dictate to you, dictate to the teacher, and they would write the information on there. And then additionally, these character maps are a bit more sophisticated than the students that many of the teachers are working with, but we wanted you to see where this is going to. So we're talking about macro structure. We're talking about students including the concept of a character in their story, but they also need to focus on microstructure down the road. And that would be using the word who in a sentence. So to get there, a character map shows you on the upper left-hand side, it says name, age, and gender. So Casey is age 7, and she has green hair, brown hair, and a pink shirt. So you could say Casey is age 7 and has green hair, brown hair, and a pink shirt, but you can also develop that microstructure, which is a bit more sophisticated, into a sentence such as Casey is a 7-year-old girl who has green eyes, brown hair, and a pink shirt. And again, this is something that you're aiming towards down the road. And then furthermore, the character map can have additional information. On the lower left, it says brave. And on the lower right, it has likes and dislikes of being a firefighter and rescuing people. So that leads to an even more sophisticated sentence, such as Ian is a brave, strong firefighter who likes to rescue people.
great.
The block center is very conducive to teaching the macro structure element of setting. And in the next picture, again, you would do a setting splash. And you would follow the same gradual release of responsibility model. Many, many discussions in a book or activities around the classroom or places in the school building or out in the community. And then you would post a picture related to your classroom discussion. After you've done many of those, again, you would repeat a similar activity and ask the students with you together, you work together and say, which one is the setting? And again, post that picture of the setting. And after many of those, you're going to do a y'all do's, where a student works with a partner to identify which is the setting and the story that's been discussed or the activity that's been done. And finally, after many of those, you would segue to the you do, where the child does it independently. And it's the same format. You always go back to the step before and repeat it, and you'd add to the splash throughout the year. And you want to move on when you feel that the child's competent. Even if you think they're ready to go on, some kids may not feel that way. So stick with a lower level until you feel that they really feel good about what they're doing and are ready to move forward. Additional activities that can be done to facilitate the macro structure element of setting is to, in a center, to talk about what do you see here and what do you hear here and what are you touching and what are you smelling and what are you tasting. So all of those 5 sensory concepts can be discussed in that block center. Additionally, you can talk about setting and you can break it into its parts. So if you're looking at the block center, you can talk about an individual part, which looks like there's a garage on the top, or the building of a tower, or a ramp, or a bridge, or an underpass. Any of the elements that the child has built, those can be discussed using the Brady star. The star paper that is in map that is in the manual as well can be used. Students after they've worked in a center and have built some type of setting, they can draw a setting on paper, and to facilitate this even more for language development, the next page shows how we're linking that activity of the using a hands-on activity with literacy. So they could write the words truck or tree or stop or light, or once again, they could state something about what they had done and the teacher could scribe for them. At the setting level, the microstructure focus additionally can still be that word who, but you're also going to be segueing into using prepositions to describe directions and positions in the setting, and learning to use is-ing verb structure. So sample sentences that a teacher could model for students would be: the policeman who works in the building drives over the bridge, or the ambulance is driving under the bridge, or the car is going across the town, the truck is driving around the city, he drove past the skyscraper. So it's unlimited really what can be done in terms of macrostructure as well as microstructure in that setting of the block center. The kitchen center is always one of my favorites, because then you can get into really talking about actions. This is a center where a lot of things are going on. Again, you're going to introduce the whole concept of actions using an action splash. So you're going to be talking about actions that they do physically in the classroom. It could be washing their hands. It can be lining up. It could be going to lunch. And then you're going to post a picture of that action that they just completed. And after you've done many opportunities of doing an action, you're going to segue into a we do, where you discuss something that's happened and give them the choice of a picture of an action or a picture of a setting, and hopefully they're going to choose the actions. And after many, many we do's, you'll segue to a y'all do, where they do this with a partner. And finally, you'll do a you do, where they do it independently. And it's the same process as the other 2 splashes. You're always going to repeat each step multiple times and spiral back. A lot of times we want to do an I do, and we'd love the kids to go to a you do. We would just love it. That would be like the coolest thing if we could see that happen. But it doesn't work that way with the children that we work with. We have to put the time into doing many I do's before we get to a we do and a y'all do, and ultimately get them to a you do. It's just the way it works for these kids.
Great.
Mhm.
The macrostructure focus in the cooking center could be these actions of stirring and pouring and watching and supervising. So I think we have 3 pictures of, one is of stirring and then a bead of pouring, and then another bead would be watching, supervising. So all those actions could be discussed, holding onto the beads while you're watching the students in that center. Once again, they can draw a picture of what they did in the center that day. I love this picture of the lady with her long, long legs. And she's at the stove, and there's a sink, and she's the mom, and she has a cat. And again, it's the same concept. They can write it if they'd like with invented spelling, or the teacher can scribe for the student. But it makes that connection between literacy and that macrostructure and the actions that they've just done.
Mhm.
The microstructure focus in this center would be using additive ties, sorry about that, such as the boy is stirring, using the additive ties such as and also, and temporal ties such as like and then, first, next, after that, then, and finally. So for example, we could say the boy is stirring and the girl is pouring. The boy is also watching them bake. First, they put the bowl on the counter. The girl pours the water, and then the boy stirs the ingredients. After that, they bake the cake. Finally, they ate the cake. So this is just really conducive to just first having actions in any order, but then you can really get them into this temporal sequence in the center, because that's what's just comes naturally when you're trying to make something. So I would at this point, I'd like to model, I do, we do, y'all do, and you do, and I'd like you to do this with me at the same time. So if everybody could grab their Brady doll.
We can stop sharing.
Yes. Do you want to, we want to make you larger, Linda?
I think
Larger
Well,
than life.
I think if people could go
Mhm.
to, let me see.
Yeah, I have
Uh,
no idea what to do.
wait a minute, let's see. I'll
You can
stop
swap the
sharing.
screen. Yeah, you can
I'll
swap the screen. Oh,
Okay.
Everybody have their Brady out?
And then if you go to your view and you do speaker view, that should make, I'm gonna just unpin us from that so that it's as big as possible. Oh, thanks, Becky. Okay.
All right, we're ready to roll. So the kids are in the cooking center. They're busy as beavers doing something, but nobody's doing any talking. So I've got to be the I do person. I have to come in, and I'm going to be like the newspaper person, the newscaster. I'm going to be doing a running monologue while these children are playing in the center. And I might walk in, I'm just going to use my two kids' names because it'll be easier for me to think of that. So I walk in, I'm like, oh my goodness, Joseph and Rachel, I am having so much fun watching the two of you baking in the kitchen center this morning. I noticed that the first thing you did is you decided that you were going to make pancakes. Then I saw the two of you gather all the equipment you needed. You got bowls and you got stirring spoons. After that, I noticed that you got all the ingredients out and poured them into the bowl. Next, I saw the two of you take turns sharing how you were stirring the ingredients together. And then finally, I saw you put them in the pan and cook them. They look delicious.
Great.
You could pull the beads back up, and if it's still going on, you can continue on and say, then you guys sat down and I noticed that you were eating them, and you even put some maple syrup on it. And what I was most excited about was finally you gave me a bite. I really enjoyed that. Thanks. So that's how you would model doing your I do. Does that make sense to everybody? Not everybody has their picture there, but I see somebody, it looks like Maya or Mia is nodding, so I appreciate that. So that's how the I do works. So let's say you've done a gazillion of these I do's, and you're the one that's the motor mouth. You're doing all the talking. You're going to come back and you're going to start trying to work on a we do. So that might start the same way. Joseph and Rachel, I come over to watch you today. You're having some fun and see if they're going to tell you kitchen. that would be great. And you don't have to worry about this morning or this afternoon part. Just see if they can label at the kitchen that where they're at. Wow, I noticed that first you took out all the, pull the bead down and see if they can label that they took out a bowl or a spoon or whatever they did. After that, I saw that you, and see if they can tell you what they did next. They got their ingredients, whatever that they're doing. And then you're going to move to the next thing. After that, I noticed that both of you took turns. Hopefully they're going to tell you stirring or pouring or using one of those verbs that goes with that center. After that, I noticed that you went over to the stove, you took out the pan and see if they will finish that for you. And if not, you may have to finish that sentence. And then you'll get to your finally and have the last bead there. So it's a give and take. And it's all just going to be dependent upon what you know about those children. But I typically, in the beginning, I was the one always saying the first, the then, the finally, and seeing if they could give me the completion of that sentence. And if not, I would have to say that part of it because I wanted the story to keep flowing. So that's how you're going to do we do. Now, a y'all do is when you're going to be passing this off. Maybe they're going to want to hold it. Maybe they're not comfortable holding it. Maybe they just want you to be holding the puppet. Once again, I'll be there and you're going to go back and forth and have them take turns. Joseph, you're playing in this center today. Who are the friends you're with? Have him tell you those friends. I noticed that you were cooking in this center today. And then hold on to this bead. Say, Joseph, can you start telling me what you did first? And have him grab this bead and pull this down and tell you, well, I got out the pans. Rachel, what did you do next? Well, I took out the ingredients, or I took out the pancake mix. Joseph, after she did that, what did you guys do? And you're going to go back and forth and give them an opportunity to do that. And after they're kind of comfortable telling you that sentence, you might just be able to pull down the bead and say, and go back and forth to this child, and then over to this child, and back and forth to this one, and back and forth. I used to pass this around, so each child would get to hold on to a part and hold on to it and tell their part. And that's how we did a y'all do as a group. So a y'all do doesn't mean actually it has to just be 2 kids. A y'all do could be 3 or 4 kids working together, completing this whole story by telling one part themselves. Just being responsible for one element is fantastic. And then finally, a you do would be where you're just passing this off to the student, and the student, you're just asking them, hey, it's your turn, Joseph, today. Could you tell me what you did today, dear? And then just hand him the whole thing, or you hold on to it, and then they can come over, and as they're touching each part, they will tell you. And of course, if they can't say a part, and you're trying to do they're doing a you do, you're going to go back to a y'all do, and you're going to help them. Or maybe you're going to segue back down to a we do. You're going to do whatever it takes to make them be successful. Did this help?
Yes, it's great. Linda, I liked very much the way you incorporated the crowd and recall. And if for some reason you have a chance, you could have the children use the Build-A-Brady's.
Yes.
Also as part of what they're doing. Okay, great. That was beautiful.
Hey, thanks.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna get back
Mhm.
let's see. Okay. So we're back here.
Mhm.
And okay. Oh,
So Mary Ellen was just showing the paper Brady, but also there's a mobile on pages 138 to 141 in the manual. And this is another great way to work on the character, the setting, and the actions in a center. So the students can draw on those beads what they did. You could have an array of pictures for them to glue on after they've done an activity. If they were working on pouring and stirring and mixing or baking, whatever the verbs you want, those pictures could be posted. Actions that you've posted already on your splash could be then segued and put onto these, and they could glue that on, and then they could hopefully get to the point of doing a you do where they're telling independently what they did. It could go home to tell mom and dad, be put on the refrigerator. It's a great activity. And Mary Ellen's had already spoken about the Brady poster, and I'll let you do this part because this is your part.
Well, yeah, this is just really the Build a Brady is two-dimensional. And the parts come off, so you can make it developmental. Parents like to use it at home after a little bit of training. And then there is the Our Friend Brady poster also, which is an alternative, adding literacy, adding words, language words that are going to build the story. So that's just, these are part of your kit that comes along with your kit. Okay. So this is the area of look-fors that we talked about at the beginning. And I thought I'd give the definition of look-fors. We were going to kind of combine our voices here. But look-fors are things that help establish standards for high-quality innovations in the classroom and bridge the gap between learning what to do and doing it. So it's really breaking the task down into doable things that everybody can see. So you can see that Brady's beginning to be used. A look-for is a clear statement that describes an observable teaching or learning behavior, a strategy, an outcome, a product, or a procedure. Observers who come into your classroom can search for look-fors when they visit the classroom or when they look at children's work, as Linda was talking about with the children's work. Teachers can reflect on look-fors to compare their teaching practices. Teachers can have a part in choosing what look-fors might be looked for. And then school and district leaders can use look-fors to define standards for all classrooms, to look at what's achievable and what could be improved upon, and to unify a school around a focus and a set of practices. So one of the things with Brady is Brady can be a common focus throughout the elementary school, even as children get more competent, and all the way up to stage 7 in the developmental sequence. Anybody have anything else to say about that?
Yeah,
It's great.
I like the eyeglasses there. So maybe
what
you'd want to talk
what
about.
we did, and this was based on, and yes, and Becky just said, I'm going to make this into, we created this for you, but we want to also be able to share it with the teachers, because like Mary Ellen just said, it's not only what you're looking for, but it's what they're doing. It's what administrators know is happening and can be happening. And so I put this into slides for you, but I'm going to put it into a PDF document so that it can be replicated or laminated and posted and that kind of thing. And the purpose of this is to really show and these are just examples of simple ways that Brady can be integrated into the different parts of the preschool classroom. And this relates to what Becky had in the questionnaire. Would you call it the questionnaire, Becky? That goes out to the teachers about the different parts that they're using and the different goals that they have.
The monthly teacher survey.
The teacher survey. So we took the elements from the teacher survey, and we put them into a matrix so that we could be very clear as to where just character setting and actions, because those are where these students are. So I don't know, Linda, did you want to go through some of these?
Sure. Well, yep, sure I can. Yep. What I thought was cool is Becky identified the parts of the day for us. So that was very helpful by saying there was circle time, indoor play centers, outdoor play. And then we wanted to focus on character setting and actions, because that's what is the first, is really important in those first 3 stages. Those are the 3 macro structure elements that we want to see children beginning to use, teachers feeling comfortable talking about. So in circle time, for if you want to focus on character, you can ask who is in the group. Does someone have a birthday? Does someone want to share an experience? Talk about a visitor coming that day. And when you're doing that, you could have either the manipulative or just the character icon present. You could just have your character splash up, or just a character head next to you. Or in circle time, you could focus on setting. You could ask the children to talk about the weather that day, or the typical calendar activities that go on in a center, or what parts of the school will we be going to today, so that you can discuss those setting pieces. And those are perfect, again, to be putting onto that setting splash. And again, the manipulative or the icon would be present. And then finally, to focus on actions using those green rings, you could be giving the morning message and going through the activities that the child's going to be doing today. First, we're going to be going to centers. After that, we're going to have art. We're going to then come back and have a snack, pulling those beads down, sequencing the day's schedule by pulling on the beads, maybe list class jobs, particular jobs that student have that day. A child can sequence an experience that they had at home. So is this making sense, how we tried to focus on those 3 macro structure elements just in circle time? And these are just sample questions.
Yes. I think we had great fun doing this. Also.
Yes.
Yes. So
Yeah.
And the other parts here are very similar.
That's right.
And because we know we're limited on time, so we want to make sure we get, but if you notice on outdoor play, the 3rd row here, we know, the teachers aren't going to be carrying the doll around everywhere. But the idea is just to point out that there are these elements in all throughout their day. Who is on the swings? Which teachers are on recess duty? The parts of the playground that they're going to means a change in setting. The process of doing something, how to swing. You jump up on the swing, you start pumping your legs. I mean, these are all things that at this age, the sequence of steps is so huge, just that in itself. If you want to go to the
And
next.
I was going to say, of course, when they come in from outdoor play, you could ask one child to talk with you about what they did outside, the actions.
And then this is these are some other areas where maybe the manipulative could be present, maybe it's not. But reviewing the day, just even something like that, it might only take a minute or 2, but that would be huge. I know that a big question I have for my daughter when she gets home is, what did you do today? And sometimes it takes the whole car ride before I get to hear it. But I know when she was in pre-K 3, pre-K 4, that question just kind of evaded her sometimes. So I think if the teachers can go through that, it just helps to reinforce them for their oral language. And then the same thing, mealtime, there's so many steps of things and so many characters that come into that, whether it's the cafeteria, the lunchroom, there's so many opportunities for just using the language of Brady.
And
I was just going to say, I did every lesson I ever did, I would pull it down and I'd say, first, we're going to do this, then we're going to this, finally, we're going to conclude the lesson with this today. And I would hand this to a student, say, okay, Chick, today it's your turn. Tell me what we're going to do. And they knew each day of the week, somebody else was going to tell me for each of those lessons that day that I taught, that they would summarize using this. So that was a way, and it's not like I did this the first day, but this was me going from my I do, and ultimately they were ready to do a you do, and I would pass this to them. They love doing that. They like to be holding on and telling everybody what's going to happen.
And what I love about that is that you're helping the child know what they did.
Yes.
What did they do today? So that's great.
And then if you want to go to the next. So then the other aspect of this was some of the outcomes that Becky listed in the survey. And we decided that we would go a little, because of what the outcomes were, we also added, so we have telling a personal narrative, talking about feelings, problem solving, we added resolving conflicts because that's an area that when we met with the teachers, they seem to really cling on to in a great way and give a ton of examples of how they could use it for conflict resolution. And then the other one is the obvious during story time or even just telling a story. That was another part. And then we added also the writing and drawing piece because it is a component of what you are doing. And we wanted to make sure to add those literacy components. And we went, instead of only going to instead of only going to the actions, we did add, because we were focusing also on feelings and problem solving, we did get to kickoff and feelings. We know that your students, that's not something that they're going to independently be able to express, but like Becky had in the survey, it's definitely something that needs to be talked about and reinforced and just modeled in the
Yes.
classroom.
And I was going to say, they may be at a stage where if you did a completion task, they could maybe fill in the character and the setting and some of the actions, but they would need your help in identifying the kickoff because they aren't quite there, but it's doable for them. So
if you want to just go through really, sorry, we just have a little bit, hold on.
yes.
I'm just gonna, so just the idea of, for example, for character, using the Brady doll, point at the head and ask who was there. And we talked about this in our other sessions. I think most of the teachers have their students. Becky had made some laminated pictures of students for the teachers, so they have some of these things already. And then even with problem solving, who was there? Have them change the, Brady's face, depending on how, what the person looked like who was there to match their own features or somebody else. With the setting, using for telling the personal narrative, I mean, that one's kind of obvious. But setting, when you're talking about feelings, where did an experience happen? What usually happens there? Was there a kickoff? Ask the child how they felt. Problem solving, if you want to go down just one more, go to the next slide. We know there was
social emotional right now.
Well, no, wait.
Yes.
Oh.
Which one are you on?
Oh, no. Oh, sorry. I'm still on the matrix.
Okay.
Just go down to, yeah. So we know there's a problem to be solved. And then if you go to the next slide, this is definitely something that teachers have to prompt for. So we just gave some examples of what teachers could say. And then again, these are the things that coaches can go in and say, this might be a way that you might want to integrate this, and whether they model it or make a suggestion, at least this way you have something very concrete to go from. So I'm going to send that to you. I know we have to we only have about 5 minutes left, so we have to.
And I just quickly wanted to say, this expands on the purpose of Brady. You can see how far it can go into the curriculum, and you are the people who are starting it. So it goes into conflict resolution, personal narratives, writing, drawing can feed in there. Okay. All right. So
and then
you'll love it.
Linda, did you want to just finish up
Sure.
with this?
At warp speed, we're going to talk about social emotional learning. The Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning created a framework to teach social emotional learning to students called the Castle 5. It's composed of 5 different competency clusters: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And the competency clusters are to be addressed in the classroom, throughout the entire school, as well as the community. And each cluster has specific subcluster areas to it. And we've identified what macro structure elements correspond to each of these areas. So if you're working on self-awareness, You're working, that was good what you had there. I like that. Throw that back there. That's great. You're working on characters, their feelings about a kickoff, and their thoughts about that kickoff. When you move to, I think the next one is self-management, you're thinking about what happened to you, how do you feel about it, what do you think about it, and what would be an appropriate plan. In terms of social awareness, you have to think about the problem that happened, not only from your own perspective and your own thoughts and your own feelings, but how did that other person feel that was involved with you in that kickoff. In terms of relationship skills, you need to pay particular attention to your social use of language. Do you maintain good eye contact? Do you think about your tone of language? Are you giving feedback, nodding your head, smiling that you understand? Are you taking turns when you're talking with somebody? And then responsible decision-making requires the entire story grammar marker with a particular focus on your plan. Are you making a responsible decision? Is your plan, did it work? Did it not work? And if it did not work, what would have been a more responsible way on how to handle that in the future? So they all tie in to the narrative. Taking the book Knuffle Bunny, we wanted to show how each of these competencies could be addressed. So for competency number 1, which is self-awareness, we have just chosen one part of this cluster, accurately recognizing one's own feelings and thoughts and their influence on behaviors. The Castle 5 has identified student goals, teacher lessons, and ongoing activities that can be done for each of these clusters. And again, there's a gazillion of them. We just chose one goal. Recognize that emotions are temporary and can and will change. And the teacher lesson would be provide age-appropriate vocabulary words, using an age-appropriate book to discuss the character's feelings and how those feelings affected others in the outcome of the story. I don't think we're tapping and typing, are we tonight?
No, and
Right.
we'll probably just quickly go through these.
Go through these and exactly. So the
Yep.
And really just that you had already
They're here.
done Knuffle
Yeah.
Bunny with us last time, so we just thought we'd show.
and so this is the second competency, and again, it's just we've chosen one goal, one teacher lesson. You can read through these, but it shows you how each of these social awareness competencies, yep, you can slide through them. Each of these competencies connects to a part of a narrative. And by working on these competencies, you're addressing the development of a narrative and comprehension at the same time. It works wonderfully. I love them all.
We can just,
Yep.
yeah. And then this is just something that we shared. Thank you, Linda. Thanks
That's
for
great.
Thanks
a lot.
Speed. These are some hyperlinks that we shared to some of our lessons on our website with the teachers last time, because we just wanted them to know that we do have a lot of resources on our website if they're hesitant about how to get started with something and how to incorporate Brady and how to incorporate a writing activity or drawing or that kind of thing.
And the manual.
And
Also.
right, and along with the manual, they can use these lessons that we've linked here.
Mhm.
And so those are, additional things that they might be able to find in the library or online. So that is, we've got about 30 seconds to spare. So we'll see you in November.
Yes. And we'll be looking at your comments.
And please let us know in the comments what additional things, if this was helpful, and what additional things we can do to support you. We have ideas of what we're going to do in the next couple of follow-up sessions, but we look forward to seeing you at the next round, and then of course again in February. So January and February.
So we'll say goodnight to you.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Becky, did you have anything else, or Dean, or?